Hey guys, and welcome back to Politea with D. I hope you guys have been enjoying the weather. It's actually been pretty nice out this past week. It's been another heat wave, and at what point is it not a heat wave and this is just life? Because how many times can you have a heat wave consecutively? Like maybe this is just summer. This is just our new normal. This is just the weather now. Um, Shed is climate change. But yeah, I have been actually enjoying this weather. Sometimes I do get a little overwhelmed because I don't know what like I'm literally Zimbabwean. I should be able to handle this heat. It could be that I was born and raised in Ireland, so my body's not actually able for this. But when I'm in Zimbabwe, I'm fine. The weather in Zim is hotter than this, and I'm grand. So I don't know. I don't know. There's something different going on here. It's got to be the humidity, and I know everyone always says that it's the humidity. It's the humidity, but it has to be because this ain't normal. Okay. But anyway, I hope you guys have been enjoying it. Anyway, let's get into this week. A lot of this week is actually like updates of things that we've talked about previously, but I'll start with all the new stuff, and then at the end I'll just tell you guys about the updates of all the other stuff that we've talked about. So yeah, there's a few updates actually. Okay, guys, let's talk about this public sector deal that everybody's talking about. This public sector pay deal. Okay, so this covers 400,000 public service workers. So teachers, doctors, nurses, civil servants, firefighters, anybody who works in the public sector will be affected by this. Okay, so what is the issue right now? So the last deal ran from January 2024 to June 2026. It's now July 2026. So this deal is dead. It's over. It's lapsed, right? Problem is now we have to come up with another deal. So the government and all of these trade unions have to come together and figure out the next deal. They're not able to get to this stage because they can't agree on the preconditions for this meeting or for these talks. Okay, the government are saying, why are we even going in with preconditions? Let's just go in with an open mind. The trade unions are saying we already have some stuff that we want, but like agree to before we even have these talks. Okay, so the last deal was worth 3.6 billion. Get your back, sis. Okay, and that delivered 10.25% in total pay increases, and it was like in stages. So 3.25% in 2024. 3% in 2025 and then 2% in 2026, right? And then there was other stuff like some fixed, some rises, some bonuses for people specifically, like they were dealing with that in themselves, right? And then there was also negotiating like changes in the workplace, work practices, structures, conditions, all of that. So what are the unions saying? So who's in control of all this, or like who's at the forefront? We have the Public Services Committee of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, and this group represents 19 unions. That's a lot, okay? And they're saying that they're preparing for some industrial action ballots, so not strikes per se straight away, but they're gonna have their members vote on what the next steps are. And Forza, who are like the public services trade union, they have this guy speaking for them, Kevin Callanan, and he says there's no agreement, no talks, and no agreed basis for talks, which is like, making people uncomfortable. It's making like it's the situation's unstable. He says, okay, so what is it that they want? They want a pay increase covering July to December 2026, and they also want a credible government position on pay and living standards, and this is before they enter the wider negotiations. So that's why the government are struggling, because they're like, let's not even go into this with some like preconceptions. Let's just figure this out when we sit at the table. And they're saying no. Okay. And they also want clarity on issues like local bargaining, remote work, housing, and AI in the public services. What is the government saying? So we have the public spokesperson for all of this is Jack Chambers, who's Minister for Public Expenditure, of course, because he deals with the money. He's the money man. In the midst of all of this, he writes an article for the Irish Times. Where he finds the time, God knows. But TDs love to do this. A lot of these people really need a Substack because they love to write articles. Okay, so he wrote an article about this whole situation for the Irish Times. This is what he said. I mean, sometimes I don't even think that these TDs actually write them. Sometimes I think like their aides or something write them, but hey, maybe they do. Anyway, he said, we won't be agreeing a public sector pay agreement at any cost. We have fiscal parameters which matter. We've had significant growth in public sector numbers over the last 5 years, 70,000 additional people working in the public service. We have accommodated significant pay agreements, and correctly so that people are paid and remunerated fairly, equitably, and sustainably in the context of significant economic uncertainty. We want to see an intensification of engagement and to come to an agreement with the public sector unions as we have in terms of the other pay agreements. So basically what he's saying is, we want to make a deal with you guys, of course, but we're not going to pay any amount. We're not like the problem is the budget hasn't come out yet, so they don't even know how much they're spending on a lot of things, right? I mean, they're obviously working on it, but they're saying we're willing to make a deal, but we're not going to just pay anything that you guys want. We have maybe an amount in their head, like a limit that they're willing to go to, but they're saying so many people have joined the public services or the public sector, so they've already spent more money than they wanted to or were expecting to, and that they can't really keep this up. So this is not what people want to hear, obviously, because hello, we're in a cost of living and inflation is crazy. Apparently, inflation made the last 1% of their increase like mute. It didn't do anything. It just leveled the playing field because of the cost of living and inflation. So, did they even really get a pay increase when you think about it? You know? So, I'll keep you guys updated on this because it seems like they can't even, get to the table yet until they deal with these, like the basis of the talks, like what they're going to be talking about. But yeah, we'll keep an update because it seems like there's really a struggle going on here. And this affects a lot of people, 400,000 people. It'll affect the people listening to this for sure. Like a lot of, I don't know what the job range is, but I assume some of you guys are in the public sector, so it'll probably affect you. So I will keep you guys updated on how that goes. Let's do two bills. So the first one is the no wait card. Okay, so this one is a Labour Party bill that they just introduced. It's called Equal Status, in the brackets, Access to Toilet Facilities Bill 2025. What this bill would do is if you have a no wait card, it would mean that retail shops and businesses with staffed toilets have to make them available to people who hold these cards, okay? Because people are real so annoying about this. Like when you're out and about, for people with kids, for whatever reason, you're like, I really need to use the toilet. And they're like, no, 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 only for staff. It's very annoying. But especially if you actually have a medical condition where you need to go to the bathroom, this can be helpful. No wait cards already exist. They're like issued by organizations like Crohn's and Colitis Ireland and Spinal Injuries Ireland, but there's no legal requirement for businesses to actually abide by these wait cards. Like you can show them and they could still be like, nah, I don't give a shit, Not ideal. So they don't actually have to provide access to bathrooms. What this bill does is actually put this on like a statutory footing. So you actually have to abide by these no wait cards, okay? So we will see how that goes. I think this is a really great bill. Honestly, I'm glad we're talking about this. Come on, you need like IBS or something. Like, come on now. Let's not let people suffer because you're trying to be weird about your access to the toilet. Let's not be weird, okay? So next topic is a bit of a heavy one, but it's a necessary one, absolutely. Let's talk about femicide in Ireland, okay? So Jamey Carney is an American woman who was found murdered in her home by a man that the police believe was known to her. And then also last Sunday, Adina Constantin is a woman who was found murdered by her husband in Portlaoise. So these two murders have obviously sparked an important conversation around femicide in this country. A lot of people seem to be missing the point of this conversation a lot of the time when they're talking about ethnicity and cultural backgrounds and nationality, when the common denominator is always men who don't respect women, men who don't see women as human beings and feel that they can do anything that they want to them because they're men, okay? And the women are women. The patriarchy is not a foreign issue, okay? It's a worldwide issue, and I don't know how we have to keep having this conversation, but it is a conversation that we will have until people truly, truly understand what is going on here, okay? So this was brought up in the doll by Ruth Coppinger, friend of the pod. She's a People for Profit and Solidarity TD, and she's basically saying like, how many times does this keep having to happen before the government does anything? Are they going to do anything? They're like, it's not enough that they make statements and say that we care about women and we want to protect women. What are they actually doing to show that? Are they trying to change the culture in this country around violence against women and respecting women? Like, what are they going to do? Okay. But I read the Women's Aid statement on this and I thought it was really powerful. And I just decided, instead of me coming up with something to say, how about I just show you guys or read to you guys the words of somebody who obviously is way more, I don't know, educated in this area than I would be, and who can give you the stats that you guys really need to hear. Okay. So this is the statement from Sarah Benson, the CEO of Women's Aid. So she said, violence, abuse, and even at its extremes, death, are still a reality for many women living in Ireland. After the devastating murder of Aisling Murphy in 2020, Ireland said never again. But Ireland has not lived up to that promise. Since then, 40 women have died violently in Ireland. That is 40 women with lives, dreams, family, friends, and communities. Since we started the Women's Aid Femicide Watch in 1996, 286 women have died violently in Ireland. Every death is an outrage, an absolute tragic loss of life resulting in utter heartache and trauma for those left behind. We are thinking of Adina, Constantin, and Jamey Carney and their loved ones, colleagues, and communities. Prevention of all domestic, sexual, and gender based violence is crucial and urgent. Women's Aid saw the number of contacts increase by 11.5% in 2025, a record high for its services. The Women's Aid Annual Impact Report 2025, launched in June, revealed that the organization recorded 62,275 disclosures of abuse against women and children during 37,790 contacts last year. Disclosures in 2025 increased by 33% from 2024, which is also a record high for the Women's Aid National Free Phone Helpline and face to face support services. The number and nature of the disclosures of abuse to our frontline services is utterly appalling. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg. 35% of women in Ireland, 1 in 3, suffer physical, psychological, or sexual abuse from an intimate partner. The level of demand for women's aid services during 2025 remained both unprecedented and deeply concerning. Behind every contact and disclosure is a woman or child navigating fear, coercion, and harm, often within situations of profound complexity. Abuse continues to manifest across emotional, physical, sexual, and economic dimensions, frequently compounded by housing insecurity, financial strain, and systemic barriers within the justice system. Each disclosure represents very, very serious harm perpetrated against a woman or child by someone they should be able to trust. We have a real urgent problem with violence against women, including femicide, in Ireland. Ireland is one of the richest countries in the world and we have good legislation, yet we still have the serious problem of 1 in 3 women suffering physical, psychological, sexual abuse from an intimate partner. On one hand, it's simple, and on the other, there are so many men, and majority men, who choose not to behave in this way. But we need everyone in our communities to recognize that there is a problem and call it out. The Women's Aid Femicide Watch shows that 87% of women where the case has been resolved were killed by a man known to them. We also know that in Ireland, 1 in 3 women has been subjected to domestic abuse of some kind. Every woman has the right to be safe in her home and in her community, and this is just not the case. We must do the work required to achieve equality and safety for all to make Ireland a country that truly has zero tolerance for domestic, sexual, and gender based violence. Shout out to Sarah Benson, CEO of Women's Aid. There's a reason why she's the CEO because her words, she put that all perfectly. The stats are terrifying. The use of unprecedented, like the fact that the numbers just keep going up and up and up. We're talking about thousands and thousands of women who are fearing for their lives every single day. Thousands of women who are, subjected to domestic abuse, to sexual abuse, psychological, like she said, like it's just genuinely terrifying. And yeah, and even Ruth Coppinger was talking about this in, I saw her like a TikTok post or an Instagram post of her talking about this in the dot, and the comments were like, "Well, we need to stop importing when we're talking about human beings. First of all, we need to stop importing people from cultures where this is normalized. It's normalized in our culture though, like it's normalized in Ireland. Absolutely, it is. It is because I'm seeing daily on RTE. If you have your RTE notifications on, every day it's a man has been, charged with abusing his wife. A man has been charged with raping his children. A man has been charged with all of the most heinous and evil things that you can think of towards women and children. And it's mute. It's always mute. But the minute it's someone who's a person of color, who's from, a different ethnicity, a different nationality, now the conversation starts. It's like some bizarre idea that, okay, we can hit women as long as it's us hitting the women. We can rape women as long as it's us raping the women. I mean, we have Conor McGregor who has been convicted, or I guess would we say if it's is it convicted if it's in public, like it's not in criminal court? I don't know, but we know he raped Nikita Hand, and he's fighting in the UFC. Like, do you know what I mean? An Irish man, white Irish man, and there's no repercussions. His life just gets to carry on as normal. And he has fans, male fans, who are obsessed with him, and he's busy always going on these anti-immigration tangents, and I'm like, hello, you are the person that you're scared of. The people that you keep demonizing, that is you're the rapist, you're the threat to society, you're the threat to women, not these immigrants that you've decided are evil because they're immigrants. Yeah, a lot of men I hate even, it's not all men, it's not all men. But it is all men, because if you are seeing this behavior in your family, in your friends, in your communities, and you don't say anything, then it is you. It is you. You might not have laid your hand on a woman, you might not have done any of those things, but if you sit by while that's happening and you do nothing about it, you may as well have been the person who's done that. Okay? Well, if you don't check your friends on the way they speak about women, the way they speak to their girlfriends, the way they act around their girlfriends, or how they act to women in the club when they're walking on nights out, the cat calling people. If you don't do that yourself, but you sit by as your boy does that, you're just as bad. Okay? If you know that your cousin is a weirdo and you don't do anything about that, you're also a weirdo. Okay? So I think we need to maybe take a step back from this whole, well, where did they come from? And maybe just start acknowledging the fact that there's a common denominator here, and it's men. And let's start calling each other out. You guys should really start doing that. But yeah, I could talk about this all day, honestly. But yeah, that is where we're at on that. But yeah, we'll carry on with the rest of the politics. All of these are going to be kind of updates on what we've talked about before. So let us start with the EU vote on the alumna plant. Do you remember, guys, last week I was talking about the alumna plant in Limerick and the fact that it produces alumna that's then smelted into aluminum, and then those things are sold to Russia, and it's used in like weapons, and then it's used to fight the war in Ukraine, and it just doesn't make sense that we're doing that. Right, so there was a European Parliament meeting, and they passed a non-binding resolution urging the EU to ban future alumna sales to Russia. Which if this happens, it would directly threaten the business that is Aughinish Alumina in Limerick. Okay. So the motion was backed by a large majority of MEPs, but the thing is, it's symbolic. It's not legal, but it does place pressure on, or political pressure on, the European Commission, because the European Commission are the only people who can propose bans and sanctions and things like that, and all 27 EU member states have to agree unanimously when it comes to that. So it's just putting pressure on them. Weirdly, though, Fianna Fáil MEPs abstained from the vote, and all Fine Gael MEPs voted in favour. So, and then also we were talking about that report that the government said that they're going to release on the Aughinish Alumina plant to see alumna, whatever. The Aughinish Alumina plant to see aluminum. It must be alumna if it's aluminum. Aughinish aluminum, whatever. The government said that they're releasing their own report on this whole Aughinish situation. That's supposed to be out pretty soon, because like 2 or 3 days ago it will be out within 10 days. So tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. That time is coming. Next thing, the Occupied Territories Bill. So that has pretty much passed. I mean, it's passed in the Dáil without a vote, might I add, without a vote. So it's now going on to the Seanad this week or next week, which is obviously also going to be passed there as well, and then signed into law. It doesn't have the services included in it. It doesn't. So I mean, at least we're passing something, but it's just such a weak bill, and I just don't know how we can, like, how the government themselves can pat themselves on the back and say we're a really pro-Palestinian country, and then do absolutely nothing to actually support Palestine. Because if this is what they think it is doing, then they're pretty much delusional. So that's the Occupied Territories Bill. So a while ago, I was talking about the Bessborough mother and baby institution, okay? And at this institution, there was a commission done, a commission of investigation done, and it found that 900 babies have died at this site. Then it comes out that planning permission has been given to, whoever does these contractors, to build 106 apartments at this mother and baby institution site. So then people appealed this and, said, I would rather you didn't build apartments here where like 900 babies have died. So went to Commission Plan Ala. It's just come out that Commission Plan Ala has granted the permission of the building of these apartments at this site. So it's kind of confusing, because there's people who are saying, they're welcoming decision, because this is the Cork Survivors Supporters Alliance. They've welcomed this decision because now the apartments won't be built on the actual burial site, the actual children's burial site, and they're also going to build, a cafe and a community cafe and like a nearby memorial, So people who are and they said they're going to make it safer for her mothers who are coming to visit the site to, or mothers and family members who are visiting the site, to have access to it and like a safer access. But then you have other people who are saying this is insane. This is insane that you're building apartments at this mother and baby institution, okay? So other people are saying that the government should buy this site, so move to a compulsory purchase order of the Bessborough site, and that they should be working on identifying the remains of the babies that are buried there. The government said that they weren't going to get involved until a decision has been made. A decision has been made, so now it's up to them to decide if they're going to do this compulsory purchase order or if they're going to allow the building of these 106 apartments at this site. Very insane, because there's obviously mothers who are alive whose babies are buried there, and I know that these apartments obviously won't be built on top of the burial ground, but I just do think it's a bit insensitive for them to be building anything around it. And I remember I was talking about before, and somebody had been saying that they should make it like an educational site so that schools and, you know, people who want to be educated on the matter can go and visit these places and actually learn about them, learn about what happened here, and learn about mother and baby institutions in general. Because I thought the whole point of acknowledging the destruction and how evil these mother and baby institutions was so that we could learn from this and that we could actually do something about it and make sure nothing like this ever happens again, which I mean these things surely won't ever happen again, but it's not enough to just acknowledge that these things are happening and apologize and give restitution. In some situations people aren't even getting the restitutions because the barriers are just so insane to getting it. But this is not enough, I feel, to just be like, okay, well, there's a cafe there for you guys to go sit at while you go visit your, like, it's just not enough. I feel like there needs to be more done, and hopefully the government do something like, buy the site back and preserve the sites. Oh, it's a hard one. I really feel for the people who are involved, because like there's like a Bessborough like survivors community. There's tons of people who actually have family members buried there, and it's like really insensitive of people to not listen to the actual people who are affected by this, because it's their family members who are buried there. They're saying, I don't want apartments built there. Then surely you should listen to them. But then again, there's people who from this Cork Survivors Alliance group who say that they don't mind. So I don't know. I'm of the mind that the government absolutely should be buying this site and preserving it and making it some sort of educational institution so that we can learn. And they also should be doing something to identify the remains of these babies. It's not enough to just have them there and know that they're there, truly. So, yeah. Okay, so the FAI had a vote on whether they should proceed with the Nations League match against Israel, and it passed. Okay, so 75 delegates voted, 68% were in favor, and 32 were against. Okay. Oh, this is so I'm just frustrated, bro. Honestly. So I watched this video of Aidan Farley, who's a Social Democrats TD, and he was on the Tonight Show. And he spoke really well and like clear and succinct about this topic. So I'm gonna play you guys this, and then we can have a little thought about it.
But disappointed and surprised to see the outcome of that vote, if I'm honest. I tell you about Mr. Mohammed Al-Wahidi. Yesterday in Palestine, Mohammed was organising a watch party for the Egypt versus Argentina game in Palestine. And days beforehand, the Egyptian coach had stood in solidarity with Palestine and dedicated their win versus Australia to the people of Palestine and Egypt. Yesterday, Mr. Wahidi, along with a taxi driver, a 10-year-old child, and an 8-year-old child, were bombed just before that watch party began. And yet we have a minister and a government telling us that sports and politics don't mix. I think this whole issue from an Irish government perspective has lacked leadership. I completely understand the FAI have been put in a very, very difficult position, but I don't think this is going to end here at all. I think the momentum is going to grow, because what we can't allow is sports washing like this to continue. What we've done is move the game. There's no neutral venue for games like this. Sport has the potential to do so much good. And I bring you back to Mr. Wahidi, who was trying to do so much good yesterday. When is enough enough? For the players, Pico Lopez said yesterday, some things are bigger than sport. This is one of those moments where, from a complete societal perspective, we could have stood up and said, no, thank you. If we lose 6 points, we lose 6 points. If we receive a fine, we receive a fine.
If we get kicked out of the tournament, we get kicked out of
the tournament that didn't exist a couple of years ago, fine. Fine.
Yeah, and possibly cost us hosting the
There's no evidence of that either.
So Perfectly said. No notes. Honestly, not much to add, but like we're talking about a genocide here. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about a genocide here. Thousands of men, women, and children murdered by the Israeli state. And we're here saying, no, not only that, thousands of people displaced, homes destroyed with nowhere to go, children who are having to have their limbs amputated with no anesthesia, no aftercare. Like, and we're here talking about, but what about if we have to pay a fine? A fine that we can absolutely afford. Are you joking me? Lose 6 points in a league like, since when has Ireland been wow, we're so good at football that we can't afford this? Like, we're like, what are we talking about here? What are we 6 points? Oh my god, we might lose 6 points. People are dead. Genuinely. Even when that guy even said, I don't know what that host's name is, but when he was like, and like we might not be able to host the European Championships. No one has said that though. Literally, no one has said this. We're all talking about hypothetical situations. We might have to do this. We might have to do this. You know what's not hypothetical? A genocide. The genocide in Gaza. That's not a hypothetical situation. That is happening. And you guys are busy worried about a fine. You can afford a fine. Will you stop? Like, also, good man Pico Lopez for speaking out on this, especially with all the attention on him recently, because, and I have other people, I saw people being like, honestly, like, no one knew who you were until 2 weeks ago or whatever, and now you're talking about this. Honestly, shut up. Honestly, just shut up. Like, sometimes people just speak for the sake of hearing their own voice or tweeting on, like, commenting on Instagram because they want to feel important, they want to feel special. You're a hater, okay? Because Pico Lopez is a legend, okay? And he will go down in history for all of time. Very, very bizarre situation when we're talking about, you know, like, I don't know, the idea that politics and sport don't mix. Like, I'm tired of repeating myself. Honestly, I've said all of this stuff a million times. Like, the idea that these two don't mix, like, honestly, get a grip. Get a grip. Genuinely get a grip. And, he's put it perfectly there, Aidan Friday, about how politics and sports do mix, okay? So, like, let's talk about the World Cup. Has anybody even been watching? I don't know. I'm sorry to pivot this way, but have you guys been watching the World Cup? Because justice for Cabo Verde and justice for Egypt. I'm now realizing the World Cup is rigged. I'm not a football person. I'm not even a sports person really in general. I just like to support us. So like I just watch, rugby because we're actually good at that. I don't really watch us in football except for when we thought we might make it to the World Cup, which was like a long shot anyway to begin with, but it did give us some hope. Okay. But yeah, it's rigged. They want Argentina in this final, bad. They want Messi in this final, bad. But I'm like, he already has a World Cup. He just won this 4 years ago. What, like, he needs another one? But yeah, justice for Egypt and Cabo Verde. I'm now reluctantly rooting for France. I was thinking of going Norway, but I don't know. I do like the French team, like the French players. And Kylian Mbappe has been getting some really bizarre racial abuse from that Paraguayan senator. So it's like, obviously, I have to root for him because he's the GOAT. So, have you guys been seeing all the memes about him? Like, they were like, oh, what's the Mbappe special? He's like, for example, nothing. He wanted to say at the moment or for the moment, but he started with, for example, nothing, and now that's all people keep saying. But yeah. Let's talk about the hare coursing bill. This is the bill that I talked about last time about the hares and how they're captured months before, trained, and then after a few months they're released into the wild. The dogs chase them and try to get them to come back, and it's a sport and it's a gambling and all of these things. So the bill didn't pass as expected, but apparently there's a split between Fianna Fáil because a lot of TDs, if they were given a vote of conscience, they would have voted for this bill. Who voted for it? The Social Democrats, Labour, Independents, Charles Wards and Paul Gogarty supported this bill. So Shay Brennan, who's a TD for Fianna Fáil, he said that there's a growing number of TDs who are finding it really difficult to keep defending the pro-coursing position. He said a lot of that would be coming from the constituency and their voters. It's not just Dublin TDs who feel this way. It's frustrating to be whipped on this issue, but you have to respect that Fianna Fáil has taken a collective position on this. Honestly, bizarre. And then Sinn Fein said that they voted against it because if they voted for it and it passed, which it wouldn't have passed even if they voted for it, but still annoying that they voted against it. They said if it passed, hare coursing would be taken underground and then it would be regulated and there would actually be more deaths and for hare deaths and it would be even more dangerous for people. So that was their reasoning. Mind you, we're one of only 3 countries in Europe to not ban hare coursing, like to have it legal. But somehow by passing it, we're about to change the game. Like, this is unprecedented. I mean, we couldn't possibly do this even though we have results from other countries. So whatever. And then another thing, bizarrely, there's a number that keeps being thrown around. It adds 70 million to the Irish economy. But Paul Murphy said, where's this number coming from? Because this came from an independent economic analysis, right? But where's this? Fine Gael keep throwing around this number, the Irish Coursing Club keep throwing around this number, but nobody has seen this report. But when the Journal tried to get this report, they couldn't. No one would give it to them. So we keep using the 70 million as a justification. Mind you, it's not enough to justify it, but that number could have been plucked out of thin air for all we know because we haven't seen this. But yeah, that's the hair coursing bill. So remember last week when I talked about Sinn Féin's unity bill and then our unity planning bill, and also the fact that Fine Gael are planning for unity themselves also, and it's going to be released in November. So Fine Gael said we have a unity planning bill, so if you're really about that life, you'll vote for ours. They didn't, okay, obviously. So their bill was the planning for constitutional change bill, right? And Sinn Féin described it as a political test for the coalition parties. They failed. They failed. So what would this bill do? I've said it before last week, I think, but it's require a green paper on Irish unity to be published within 18 months, as well as providing for the convening of a citizens' assembly. So what did the Taoiseach Fine Gael leader Simon Hare say? He said, and mind you, keep in mind, Sinn Féin, not Sinn Féin, Simon Harris hates Sinn Féin, and he hates Mary Lou. So there was no universe in which they were ever voting this way, even though they voted for their abortion bill, I guess. So, or some of them, that was a vote of conscience anyway. So it wasn't specifically party whipped, but keep in mind they hate Sinn Féin, and they hate how, like, I think Republican they are. Which I'm like, we need at least one Republican party out there because I know a lot of you bitches are faking that. Okay. Anyway, so Fine Gael said, or Simon Harris said, constitutional change cannot be driven by deadlines or arbitrary timelines. Well, it's got to be driven by something, and I do love a timeline. Like, I don't like this hypothetical like unity planning bill. Like, will your planning bill not have a timeline in it? Because I want to know when you're planning to do this. It's a plan. This is what this plan would have done. Do you know what I mean? Like, God forbid there's a timeline. Isn't that kind of your job to? I mean, to be fair, Simon Harrison timelines, they don't work. Like, I mean, check the hospital, the children's hospital. You know, that had a timeline. Where are we now? Okay. So obviously, timelines can be a bit of a triggering word for Simon Harris because they've never gone his way ever. Okay. So anyway, then we had Micheál Martin. He said, this bill tabled by Sinn Féin was not a credible option, and this is an approach that people have taken before and it has failed numerous times. He said the bill would do little to achieve its objectives, and this is quite patronizing. He said, instead of waving flags in people's faces and talking about the inevitable march of history, we need people to be open about the scale of obstacles to overcome and the spirit of a peace agreement, which is the bedrock upon which we can build our future. So that's a bit, yeah, that was very patronizing, honestly. But anyway, I don't know why he thought this bill was like, we're now going to be a unified, like, one island. Like, no one, I mean, we are one island in my mind anyway. But nobody thought that's what's gonna, like, it's just a planning bill. I don't know. I feel like people are being, I mean, the Fianna Gael and Fianna Fáil are being really dramatic about this. But anyway, so what did Mary Lou say? She said, reunification is, of course, about removing the border, but not only that, it is about so much more. It is about seizing the moment and the opportunity to create a new deal for the people of Ireland, for every person on this island, a new deal for Protestants and Unionists, which protects their British identity and replaces the bad treatment and abandonment from Westminster with real ownership, inclusion, and respect as a full citizen, to have a real stake in the future where that British identity is secure. Micheál Martin also said about the bill, all analysis and proposal about the economy, education systems, health systems, public service pay, the replacement of sterling legal systems, policing, legacy, culture, identity, and constitutional structures must be completed in a year and a half. That is obviously not credible. Please let's move beyond the new slogan that all we need is government advocacy and a citizen assembly, and then we'll be ready. A policy of one more push and hoping for an unpopular government in London will achieve nothing. If we can share a common understanding of the facts, then we can discuss our future on an informed basis rather than simply singing the old songs and expecting something new to happen. Right. See, I would slightly, no, not even really, but I would get this if he was actually doing something. Like, he keeps saying, like, you can't expect to keep, like, singing the old songs, doing all this and expecting things to change. But he's not putting forward anything plausible in return. He's just saying, you can't do that. But I won't do anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, that just makes people lose hope to know that the government doesn't care. And interesting, what he means by a policy of one more push and hoping for an unpopular government in London will achieve nothing. Because obviously, and guys, I really don't mean to be mean to the unionists and the Protestants or whatever. The British government couldn't give one heck about Northern Ireland, and they've proved that time and time again, okay? And what they mean by an unpopular government is, hoping that the unionists and Protestants and the people in the north, if they have an unpopular government, that they'd be more open to the idea of unity, because the government in London isn't doing anything, the government in the UK aren't doing anything, so maybe we'll consider Ireland. But he's saying you can't really hope for that, which, I mean, I get to a certain extent, but, you gotta put forth something. Honestly, you gotta put forth something. You can't just keep saying, this isn't gonna work, this isn't gonna work. So what is gonna work? Do you have any ideas? Any suggestions? Any ideas? You are the Taoiseach. I would think you come with some ideas. I don't know. That's just a thought I've had. Anyway, that's all I have for this week, and I will see you guys next week. Bye!